Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. And we're getting into our first conversation, looking at the World Trade Organization and its new leadership. So on Monday, the WTO confirmed the appointment of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as its new Director General, making her the first woman and the first African to hold the position. Now, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala served as Nigeria's finance minister and worked for 25 years as a specialist in development economics at the World Bank, where she oversaw an $81 billion portfolio. She says she can be a clear set of eyes for the global trade body.
Well, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who recently also has a track record of taking on seemingly, well, intractable problems, you have to say, will have her work cut out for her for the trade body as Director General, a position that yields limited, formal power. Ngozi will need to broker international trade talks in the face of persistent U.S. China conflict, respond to pressure to reform trade rules, and counter protectionism we see and heightened by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the World Trade Organization sets the rules for global trade and adjudicates in trade disputes between nations. Now, it is supposed to be an open trade for the benefit of all.
Our guest is financial expert and founder of Awabah, Tunji Andrews, who joins us now on Breakfast Central. Tunji, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start with a bit of her background. Now, during her 25 years at the World Bank, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is credited with spearheading several initiatives to assist low-income countries, in particularly raising nearly $50 billion in 2010 from donors for the International Development Association, which is the World Bank's fund for the poorest countries. How different is her work experience in terms of now the new position that she's coming into? We have seen some who have criticized her that she does not so much have a background in trade and negotiation.
One of the things about those jobs, especially when they are jobs that are about linking communities and linking societies, it is really about the pedigree of the person in question. And if there's anything we can say is that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has pedigree. This is, I don't want to, compare apples to oranges, but you want to look at it from the perspective of just looking at her graduation pictures every time she's gone to school. You would realize that there are, at least four other people in that lineup who are either head of this, head of that, gone on to be IMF boss, gone on to be World Bank boss. You just know that she comes from a very long pedigree line, and she's worked with a lot of people at the World Bank at the position she was. So this will not be a difficult position for her because she will have experts under her. Her main job is really bringing those countries together. So, it's likely that maybe the head of the finance minister or probably the advisor in many countries, she probably has had a prior relationship with, either going to school or working at the World Bank with, or one, position or the other. Right now, we know that she's on the board of a company like Twitter. So, she has vast reach and vast experience. So really, it's about bringing people together, bringing countries together, which of course she has been doing very, very well. She did that for Nigeria as the coordinating minister of the economy. And if Nigerians don't realize it, once she left, there was a big void that was left. And we fell into a recession almost immediately. I could almost say that if she was there, it was unlikely that we would have fallen into that recession. But that's a story for another day.
Well, Tunji, everyone tends to, have an economic philosophy or point of view. Now, looking at her time at the World Bank and as Nigeria's finance minister, what do you think her philosophy at the World Trade Organization will be this time?
Well, she has continued to, even towards the end of her tenure here as a Nigerian economic coordinating minister of the economy, it was clear that she's a big macro person. Macro is the overall outlook of how the economy works together. She was already talking, trade integration. She was talking about how we needed to, create more jobs to be able to liberate the poor in Africa. So I do see that she's going to be pushing a lot of trade that is going to spur job creation and development in some of the most vulnerable parts of the world, because that is, if you've looked at what she's been doing, and she was criticized for this when she was economic minister in Nigeria. People were saying things like she's too top level, that Nigeria needs a bottom approach kind of finance minister. If you remember, that was the criticism at the time. So she does show that she is going to be just trying to create a wide array of those kind of trade deals that will spur job creation, that will spur integration, and that will spur at least some sort of liberation for some of the poorest countries. I remember saying to somebody yesterday that one of the reasons why I'm excited she's there is that it's important to have somebody that has a unique understanding of the pain points of your people when the person is in that seat. Because it is one thing for you to say that Africa is suffering, Nigeria is going through a hard time. It's another thing for you to know how Nigeria is going through that hard time and knowing exactly what Nigeria needs to get out of that hard time. So yes, it is a great time to have her at that office.
Okay, so we see that she finally is taking on this position, and the WTO that she is inherited, yes, had a 6-month leadership gap. And that partially did paralyze the WTO. And this is after appointments to its top appeals body that acts as the global arbitrator of trade disputes were blocked by former U.S. President Donald Trump. So she wasn't the only one who was blocked. It's also a position that has some limited formal power. So in terms of what she can accomplish and what do you think lies ahead for her, where do you think she stands? What can she do to transform the WTO, to clinch the deals, to make sure that global trade is moving forward, and to bring Africa truly on board? That's also like another question on its own.
I think the first point of call will be trying to help the EU and the UK smoothing their own trade conversations. They're having a bit of stormy waters with Brexit. So the first point of call will, of course, be seeing how they can, smooth out those relationships. The other part, of course, which I think is the reason why Donald Trump was very, very keen on that position, is the relationship between China and the US. There has been a bit of stormy waters in terms of what can come into the US, what should go into China, and the US feeling, or at least Donald Trump feeling, that that China was taking advantage of the US in terms of trade conversations. So she has her job cut out for her in terms of trying to smoothen out those relationships. But for Africa, yes, she also has another difficult puzzle to crack, especially around the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. I just heard yesterday that there is conversation around the fact that we might possibly be looking at Nigeria is pushing conversations to protect rice in Nigeria and some what we call infant industries, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Because, I mean, it's not only Nigeria that has infant industries, everybody has infant industries. So if we're all protecting our infant industries, then there's no point in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. So I think she has her work cut out for her in terms of trying to, bring all parties to the table and seeing that, everybody can make sense of what is going on.
Yeah, but Tunji, I want to take you back to one of the first comments she made when the announcement was made virtually, and we saw her speaking for the first time. She didn't even waste time. She went straight to it about COVID-19 pandemic, which is clearly the big challenge of where the WTO stands now to really bring these countries for trade talks amidst the pandemic, because that's the first thing she has to tackle. It's not an easy time to take on such a job, right now, is it, for Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is it?
And this is why her pedigree is very important. Remember earlier I said something about the fact that I don't think that we would have gone into a recession if she was finance minister at the time.
Yeah.
Is because, you see, all deals that we get to hear about, especially when they're international deals, they're already broken in behind. There's already backdoor conversations that have already happened. They've sealed it, they've agreed it. Then they come out into the open and say, oh, we're having conversations, we are negotiating, just to give you the feel that there is some sort of progress happening in the conversation. And that is one of the things I think she has to bring to the table. Our finance minister at the time was trying to meet with a lot of international bodies, trying to have meetings. But because, of course, she didn't have the pedigree to do it, she was being treated as any other finance minister will be treated. But imagine if, Olisa, you become the UK, the head of IMF tomorrow. You know, I'm not going to call your secretary to say I want to see Olisa. I'm going to call your phone and say, Baba, they come see you now. You know, tell your secretary side they come. You know, that kind of a thing. And that is what the pedigree she brings to the table. So she'll be able to broker it, even if she doesn't know the president directly. She'll be able to have somebody who can, you know, speak to the trade minister on that side and say, we want to meet with your people. We want to meet with your people. Bring them together. Have a seat with us, let's discuss. And that, you know, smoothing things out. Relationship is the most important thing when it comes to world conversations. And this is what I believe she brings to the table. And this is what I believe everybody sees about her. And it's unfortunate that Nigeria did not see it at a very quick stage.
All right, Tunji, we'll be following her activities very closely, even though she's not supposed to resume till March 2021. We can obviously see that's not happening. She's already, in a way, very much resumed activities as the Director General. Tunji Andrews, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. We'll be, of course, another conversation.
We'll have this conversation about me going to the World Trade Center organization as perhaps the boss.
Yes, we should do that.
And me, I'll be doing what?
You never calm down. You never can tell. I can't tell.
It's true. You never can tell. Let's keep all the relationships open. Tunji, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so interesting there, because there are some who believe that having Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the head of the WTO doesn't really mean anything for Africa, and there are those who are very hopeful that her taking on that position will, in some ways, definitely benefit the continent. But whatever it is, decisions, conversations, we will be addressing them and following up on them.
I've been following lots of comments, and you know, especially with other people in the global south, and there's this notion that, okay, this is the best person that we could have right now. And after that kind of gap that we had in leadership then, a pandemic is going on. We know we have U.S. China trade wars going. Donald Trump has left the White House. If the World Trade Organization was to bring someone, it has to be someone of transparency who can bring these countries together and say, look, there's a pandemic first, we'll deal with that, but we're still friends and we can help each other. Because people are asking, who else would they have brought in at this point? Because the world needs to recover from this pandemic together.
And I remember saying yesterday that, you know, everything she's done, again, with what Tunji said, has literally led up to this. Her pedigree, her degrees, her work, being on the boards, working with Gavi, all those things, it has literally led up to this. And we, again, very much wish her the best.